Well, we're going to, in a way, start this meeting. And I want to encourage people who haven't finished to go ahead and finish up your lunch and to grab dessert or drinks or anything to keep us going. But in the interest of time, first, welcome everyone. Always enjoy these holiday lunches. In part, we've got great food from one of our local businesses, from Rico's, and it's a time we, obviously, as a community and really as a nation and society, kind of celebrate the year, and so we especially enjoy both this time of year and getting together this time of year when we can share in the festivities. First, I want to do something that's out of order. My staff, I think, doesn't know this is coming, but I was reminded that all of us know that yesterday Nelson Mandela died, and any of us who have lived through the era of apartheid and the end of apartheid and the transformation of a country peacefully, and it was largely due to one person and his leadership, his incredible capacity in so many parts of his life. And I don't think, other than maybe someone like Gandhi, that there has been anyone in the last century who has had such an enormous impact in such a positive way in the world as Nelson Mandela. So it's been suggested, I appreciate it, then maybe as we start the meeting that we pause for a moment and just quietly reflect on him and what he's meant to so many of us. So I'll ask for just a moment of silence. All right, thank you. You know, I started reading I think the title of the book is Long Walk to Freedom. I started reading his book and got like 2/3 of the way through it, I don't know, 10 years or so ago when it came out. And then I didn't finish it, and I keep seeing it on my bookshelf. And going, you know, I've got to finish this. So this morning I picked it up, and I'm going to be doing some traveling, so hopefully I'll be able to finish it. But truly, and a remarkable contributor to our world. The first item on the agenda, and then we're going to, in a way, sort of take a break for a minute in our regular meeting, is when we recognize at the end of each year the outgoing community council chairs and thank them for their service. It is, you know, an amazing contribution each of you make. I know you get paid really well for it. To step forward and work with and represent your neighborhood in a lot of ways. And it's often a short term. Sometimes some of you take it on a longer term endeavor, but it's a short term commitment. And fortunately, we have a lot of community and a lot of people in the community are willing to step forward. But there are several of us who are leaving this year, and I want to mention them, and then we're going to go up and do a quick photo shoot. We give a certificate for the outgoing community council chairs, and then we'll resume with the meeting. So those of you who haven't had dessert, I want to encourage you to get it as we sort of spend a few minutes with sort of suspension of the normal meeting. But I'm just going to read their names because I know I could talk about many of these folks for quite a while, but just I know all of us appreciate those who have been willing to and have served, and I know will continue to serve in the community, if not in this fashion directly and in other ways. So Gwen Springmeyer, Christine Thomas, I'm sorry, Christopher. It's good I put my glasses on. I was trying to make sure I was getting the community councils right with each person, and
Operation went well, dude, okay?
So, congratulations, Christine. Yeah.
Okay.
With the Sugar House Community Council, Pat Schultz with Sunnyside East, Myra Close with Jordan Meadows, Richard Starley, Capitol Hill, Gary Felt, East Central, Brad Bartholomew with Rose Park, and Tom Mutter with Central City. I know Tom isn't here, maybe a couple of others aren't here. But what we're going to do is we're going to go up over here and do a quick photo and hand a certificate out. And then I'll encourage, if any of you want to just carry on and some conversation across the table, we'll encourage that. But be back in a minute with the regular meeting agenda. So thank you. But I'll tell you what, before we break up, let's give a big thank you to those outgoing chairs. All right, well, thanks. Thank you, everyone. I want to move, if we can, fairly quickly through a couple of things we have on the agenda, so I make sure we leave time for our usual discussion. But we have a few people here who are new to our community council chair, so why don't we just go around with some quick introductions?
I'm Jessie Rollins with the Poplar Grove Community Council, and I'm actually the youth committee chair. The community council chair could not be here today. So.
I'm Gwen Springmeyer. I'm the outgoing chair from the Greater Avenues Community Council.
Marianne Wright, and I just took over the other night on the Greater Avenues Community Council.
Maggie Shaw, Sugar House Community Council.
Michael Iverson's incoming chair of Central City Community Council.
Elkie Phillips, Ballpark Community Council.
Darrell High, East Liberty Park.
Richard Starley, outgoing chair of Capitol Hill.
Robert Doxey, the Foothill Sunnyside. I'm the co-chair with my wife.
Well, that's a whole new arrangement.
She does all the work.
I just come to luncheon, yeah. Okay. Pershing, I'm here representing Kelly White, who's the chair. I'm the co-vice chair of Yale Crest.
I'm excuse me. I'm Joanne Anderson, Jordan Meadows Community Council chair.
I'm Myra Close, the outgoing Jordan Meadows Community Council.
My name is Nate Salazar, and I'm representing Esther Hunter from the East Central Community Council, and I serve on the East Central as chair of Douglas Neighborhood Association.
I just want to mention that Nate, I need to give him credit. He's the one who came up and suggested that we have a moment of silence for Nelson Mandela.
Blake Perez, Rose Park Community Council.
Patrick Frazier, Wasatch Hollow Community Council, chair.
Steve Johnson, Fair Park Community Council.
Jeff Bear, chair of the Community Council. And go ahead, Sean.
Sean McDonough, Community Liaison, Mayor Becker.
Who?
I have nothing to do with community council. I'm just here to present Stephanie Young.
Stephanie, thank you.
I'm Judy Short. I'm the first vice chair and the land use chair for Sugar House.
Erin Hale, the mayor's office.
Mary Delamere Schaefer. I'm the deputy director in community and economic. You won the prize for writing the most grants.
Oh, I did?
Chelsea Adium from the mayor's office.
Joyce Valdez, Mayor Becker's community liaison.
Aaron Young with the West Point Community Council.
I'm Shelby. I'm an intern in the communications department. I'm Sarah. I'm an intern in the communications.
Our mayor's office communications team.
Okay, thank you. I also want to mention, because so many of you have been working with Joyce Valdez, that she has had the gall to decide to retire at the end of the year. So let's acknowledge she's been such an incredible liaison. So
this
we're,
was a democratic society and we could vote on such things.
well, if we could, we know what the result would be. So she didn't ask. No, we're all really saddened by that. Happy for her, because she and Andy are now going to have, who's also retiring, are going to, start having a new expanded life together, which will be great. So anyway, thank you, Joyce.
Effective. When is that effective?
The end of the year. Right? Unless we were able to convince you to stay longer. I know Dave's working on you still, so. Anyway, thank you. So we're going to give you two items that we think and hope will be of interest and use to you. One is talking about the snow removal ordinance. As all of you know, we've been talking about this and working on it since last winter's challenges. Is that a nice way to put it? At least we're not Cottonwood Heights, I'll put it that way. Well, I'm not placing any blame. We know, I'll tell you, on my end of the world, we know how tough it is to make some of these services work and work well. So I'm just saying, I'm glad we're not dealing with that. We have our own challenges. Anyway, Sean is going to make, I think, a quick presentation on that, and then we'll...
Hi, everybody. As Mayor Becker mentioned, we did have quite a few challenges last year with, of course, as much snowfall as we received and the freezing temperatures. As we're experiencing right now, we received our first snowfall and freezing temperatures. So with that, Michael Stott and myself and civil enforcement, as well as, who else was at the table? Public Services. We all got together, believe it or not, in the spring, because we didn't want to procrastinate. We wanted to be more reactive, considering the things that we heard. So we went to the drawing table, so to speak, and we brainstormed, and we put out there what some of our challenges were, some of the challenges that we received from the community and from residents. And one of them was to clarify exactly what it is they were meant to do as far as removing snow from the sidewalk. So what we did is we looked at amending our sidewalk ordinance, and I don't know if anybody wants that code number, but I can give you that, and you can look it up. It's city code number 14.20.070.
One more time, please.
It's 14.20.070, and it's called snow to be removed from city sidewalks. And what we wanted to do with that is we wanted to clarify it, the property owner's responsibilities. And there were a couple items that we looked at in doing that. One of them was to clarify the abutting sidewalk actually includes your corners and curb ramps. So the reason we wanted to clarify that is to better help those pedestrians who might have a disability or who might have a stroller and a child so that they could get through. Another thing we wanted to clarify was that ice resulting from the freeze or from the snowfall actually needs to be removed, and it needs to be bare pavement. And you need to do that with either treating it with ice melt, sand, or similar materials. And of course, this is to help with pedestrian safety. The other thing we wanted to try and clarify was how much did you need to remove from the sidewalks? Right now, the ordinance reads that you need to change the breadth of the entire sidewalk to a, let's see, wait a minute, the whole sidewalk, the entire sidewalk. And we wanted to clarify it and say, well, maybe at least to 42 inches in width. And that's just sort of a standard. We looked up a couple other cities and what they were doing, and that's what Boston had suggested in theirs. Our average sidewalks are about 48 inches wide. The other thing that we wanted to clarify was we wanted to give our administration the authority to adopt some rules and regulations for accommodating exceptions. And that was because we had a lot of people that were concerned about assistance, and there's a lot of people who are disabled and aren't able to clear their walks, or they don't have anybody in their home that can help them. And so what we're doing is with the ordinance, we are, it's about ready to go. I think we're gonna, early next week, we've got a transmittal ready for City Council, and they'll review it. And one thing I didn't mention is we also put this up on our Open City Hall, and we received, I think, about 187 people perused the topic, and about 48 people responded. And we'll be attaching that to the transmittals so that the city council can also review that and see what people's concerns were and if they were for this or not. And one of the things that we found, there were several different areas that people were concerned. One was assistance. We had a lot of people wanting to know what they should do if they did need help. The other was, what if I go out of town? What do I do? They were concerned about that. The other issue was a lot of people want it to be a lot less that they have to clear. They want it to be maybe 2 shovels, one way, one going the other way. So we know that it has to be at least 36 inches for ADA regulations. So that's another thing that we'll send to the council and have them review and see what it is that they feel. So that's where we are on that. We also looked at the education piece, because I don't know if you remember, I'm old, so I'm getting older, but I grew up in Virginia, and my parents would say, Sean, you need to go out and help Miss Kazee because she can't get out there and shovel her walks. And you know, a little reluctancy, and I'd go out there, of course, and I'd help her out, and I'd get a 10-cent Slurpee. So there you go. I mean, so we can help our neighbors, and that's part of the program that we're going to be advertising, is a neighbor-to-neighbor program. And we've got some good ideas for that. So we've got some door hangers and some things that we're working on. The other thing is notification, better notification to people who have been given a citation. And one thing we are doing as well is this year we'll be giving a warning, one warning, and then after that you'll be getting a citation. The other thing is we're going to do a couple pilot programs, and one is on 400 South between, I believe it's 200 East and 900 East, and that is our city, existing city snow removal operators will actually help with those berms that are developing because of the ice and the snow. And we'll see, because those sidewalks are used quite frequently with pedestrians. Also, we're going to be doing a pilot program on Foothill because there's a lot of houses that actually, their backyards abut to Foothill, but they can't get to the backyard. I mean, they don't have access to the back. And so we're going to be doing that from, let's see, Bonneville Hills Golf Course on both sides. From that, and I don't know what the actual south is, but all the way to almost to I-80. Yeah. And right now we're going to use existing funds unless there's a lot more expense, and then we'll go back to City Council. But for now, we're going to try those out. We're going to keep numbers and figures and see how it works. So it's just a pilot program for this year. Yes, Lynn?
Can you remind us again, is it 24 or 48 hours after official cessation of snow?
It's 24. 24. Okay, sorry. I meant to check on that for you. But anyway, so those are some of the things that we're proposing, and I just wanted to update you on that, and hopefully we'll have a really good snow year. So, yes.
You know, I saw the notice on snow removal on the streets.
Oh, on
And
the Open City Hall.
That raised a lot of comment in our council. I don't remember getting a notice on.
You're talking about parking being restricted during
I don't
snowplow.
remember getting a notice, like an email or something, saying that the sidewalk issue was going to be. Send out?
We don't normally send out information that it's going to be on an Open City Hall. We just have people, you know, you can go on there and then see what topics are available. As far as the one is on the parking restriction, that was just basically, I mean, we haven't drafted an ordinance.
But that was put on Open City Hall, and I received notification that it was put on City Hall.
Oh,
And
okay.
I received notifications of other issues on City Hall. I do look at the city site. I don't often go to Open City Hall.
But you
On a
were
regular
notified
basis.
about that?
You know, and I'm concerned. West Side communities, I was struck when I looked at Envision's 2040 report, that the number, percentage of the city's disabled people who live in West Side communities. there's a striking division in terms of city, and a lot of stuff between east side and west side. That was one. I think in the west side communities, and I'm thinking of Fair Park specifically, one of the challenges we face is that a lot of our residents are disabled. How do you disperse that responsibility in terms
And that's part of our educational piece in that with the neighbor helping neighbor, then we're also putting together a resource list so that if they're identified as being disabled, if they've self-identified as being disabled, we're also giving them a grace period of 7 days so that they can call and have somebody come out from perhaps the resource list. We're also asking if community councils can help us with a list. Do you know of organizations in your community, Boy Scouts, churches, other groups that we can put on the list that they could call to come out and help? Those are the things that we've come up with so far. But it is going to city council. There will be another public input process.
So let me, I'm going to guess we could have a very lengthy discussion about the substance of snow removal in the city. In the interest of time, we can come back to this maybe during the Q&A piece, but I think what we want to do is just make sure that you and members of the community are notified, informed. We're looking at some changes here. There's a process we're going through. Online City Hall is always a good way. One reason we found we get exponentially more feedback through online City Hall than we do through our other kinds of processes for comment. So we found that really valuable just in terms of getting input. But rather than debate the pros and cons and all the differences here of what we could end up with, I think what I would suggest is we come back to this if you want to in the sort of comment period, but we invite you and your neighbors to comment, help us shape these policies. And if it's helpful to have our liaisons come and spend some time in your individual community councils, do it. Is that okay with folks?
Yes, if we could get some clear dates on comment period.
As far as this, we're going to be sending the transmittal, we're hoping this week. And then from there, the city council, the transmittal goes to the city council, and that's our suggestions to them and why we made those choices.
So the city council, they obviously haven't put it up on an agenda yet, and they won't, and they'll determine their own timing on when to do it. My guess is if we have a heavy snow year, it'll move much more quickly for some reason, but yeah.
Okay, so I'm still not clear on dates. So they may take it up at their next meeting?
Oh, no. I can tell you, they are so backlogged. This will not come up.
We do have time, and you would be the person who could come and talk?
That would actually be Michael Stott. Actually, I'm filling in for him today because he's not here. But your liaison would also be someone that you could contact to find out what the timeline is and where it is in the process.
Our liaison, who's leading the entire.
Yeah.
For myself, I mean, it doesn't matter.
We'll have you covered.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Okay, other sort of just logistical or questions in terms of the process here? Okay, thank you. Next, Stephanie's going to talk to us about engaging diversity. So Stephanie, please come up. Do you have a PowerPoint too? I'll get out of the way again.
Do I just remove this machine here? All right. Good afternoon.
Hello. Greetings.
After lunch, usually it's a kind of a horrible time to be listening to a presentation, isn't it? So I won't be surprised that in the next 30 minutes you're going to agree with everything I said. And if that's the case, that's a-okay. In the city, we know that Mayor Becker is very, very supportive and he promotes inclusive or inclusion as a working environment, as a city. And so every city employee is going through diversity training. And there are some principles or some paradigms that could be applicable to community council. So I was asked to come and share with you some very fun insights that may help you offer some benefit to you as you try to engage diversity in your council. So for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you some things that every city employee is going through, and hopefully it will be fun. And as usual, in my presentation, I like to make it as interactive as we can and make it as fun as we can also. So can we just all kind of relax now? And that means that whenever I ask a question, I would like to have answer to. And some people say, you know, my tummy is so full, I really don't want to bother. If you don't want to answer, that's okay. Just nod or shake, that's okay too. Do I have your agreement?
Done.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, you're still awake. That's a good sign. Anyway, before we start, let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Stephanie Yao. I'm the training and development consultant within the city as a part of HR department. All right. So I was made in Taiwan.
Yes.
Can you tell? We got a bunch of humor impaired people here. I don't know what I'm going to do in the next 30 minutes.
But isn't that an HR moment? Because we don't really care where you were made.
Is that right? Yeah. Anyway, I have lived in 3 continents in my lifetime, even though I'm only 29.
Good.
If you believe that, I have a bridge for sale in the desert too.
And I'm 29 with 50 years worth of experience.
Sure. We are on the same side here. Anyway, I speak 3 languages, and English is the worst of my language. And so from time to time, I found people having difficulty understanding me. And therefore, you will frown like what this gentleman has already been doing to me. And so that's a-okay. My English is all self-made. I make up the language as I go. So quite often, if you don't understand me, it really is your problem. Right? But good thing that you can just frown and I'll catch it and then I'll say, what's your problem? And we will clarify what I'm trying to say. Sounds good?
Sounds good.
It's kind of good. All right. So what are we trying to accomplish? Very quickly. 1 is to understand why are we talking about this? What's the benefit? 2 is what are the issues? And 3 is what can we do about it? Right? Very short, 30 minutes, a very aggressive agenda, but let's try to see if we can cover it anyway. So what is diversity anyway? Diversity means...
It's not Utah.
You don't know how to read. Diversity means...
Differences. And that's an F. Okay.
He has difficulty with English like I do. All right. So let's say, for example, Michael, the new chair. Michael. Between
Stephanie.
Michael and Stephanie, how are we different?
Male, female,
All female.
Gender is different?
blonde or
Age.
brunette.
Age is different. I'm 29. You are 62?
Getting there.
Getting back, right? Language is different. I speak my perfect Chinglish. You speak English, right? Right. I'm vertically challenged a little bit. You're practically very tall, very nice, right? And so you say, Stephanie, where are you getting at? Most of the time when we say differences, you automatically think about these dimensions, what we call regards, right? These are the EEO protected classes of what we mean, right? But if you think carefully, are we different in all these other dimensions as well? Right?
Right.
And so you go, Stephanie, I knew we were all different when I was 4 years old, so what's the new thing under the sun that you are talking about, right? Now, some of the dimensions are fairly visible, such as this is visible, this is kind of visible, right? Age, some people look very young, you know, like me. It may be a kind of disguising sometimes, huh? Disability sometimes is visible, sometimes it is not. And so for some of you in your mind right now, you are saying, you know, in my community, I have no diversity. Is that true? No. No, it's definitely not true. We all have diversity in our community. All right, so do you see all these kind of faces every here and there? I was told that since I'm not quite familiar with the councils within the city, I was told in some areas that you have more predominantly one race versus a mix of all different races. Is that right? Right? But if you look at the city, this is our demographics. Okay? So in terms of minorities, you will see we have very little percentage in terms of American Indian, Asian, African American, and so on and so forth. Hispanic probably is the largest minority in our community. Do you have this kind of data within your specific council? You don't? That would be good information to have, wouldn't it? But you kind of have a sense by walking around, driving around, right? Okay. So, do you think that it is ideal for the council to reflect the population that it represents?
Oh, yes.
You say yes?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you. Logically, you would think, of course, right? Okay. So, however, inside, deep down, you ask yourself, why should I bother? I mean, I already volunteer so much of my time and energy. Why should I bother, right? So, is there something good that comes with diversity? Truly, is there?
Oh,
We
yes.
say, yeah. What are they?
You learn other races' ways.
Perspective, a very
yeah.
fresh perspective, right? I mean, I learned, do you know that address in America, in Utah, if I say, where do you live, Pat? You will say number, street, which area, right?
No, I say I live in Kearns, no, Murray,
Is that right?
but it's not Salt Lake.
It's not so late, okay. I can see he's a little bit difficult. If you ask a Japanese, they will say, I live in Yakamoto block. They don't give you the number by the street. They give you the number by the block. And their numbers is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 2, 4, 6, 8 on one side, 1, 3, 5, 7 on the other side. Their number is based on when the house was first built. So number 1 will be here, number 2 may be on the other side of the block, right? Isn't a perspective very refreshing, isn't it? In America, we say, oh, shucks, I missed my train this morning. In Spanish, I was told, they would say, the train missed me. And it's so cool, right? It's just a different perspective, huh? Rich experiences. Do you think people coming from different parts of the world carries a different experiences, right? And then, of course, creativity and innovation. And this is what most of the organizations or communities are after, because we got so many things that we need to take care of. And therefore, we will generate out-of-box thinking. And if we have more time, I'll put you through some exercises to see how much out-of-box you are. But because we don't have time, never mind. Do you agree with me? These are the benefits of diversity.
Yes. Yes.
Cognitively, right? Okay. Someone in Pennsylvania came to this observation. It's brilliant. Isn't it? So I said, definitely there are something good if we can mobilize it. But inside your heart, again, I can hear what you're just thinking. You say, what's in it for me? If you cannot answer this question, I ain't gonna go with you, Stephanie, no matter how good you are talking is about, right? So what's in it for me? As a chair in a community, do you agree this is something good for you?
Yeah.
Yeah? How about this? A real representation, right? And then, of course, when we have problems, we got creativity, right? So is this enough to entice you to say, yeah, I better pay attention to diversity? Is it? It's looking at me going like, I'm not sure. All right. Okay, you're fine. Okay, let's keep going. All right. So what does value diversity mean? It means 4 things. One is acknowledge the differences in people. And you say, Stephanie, I told you when I was 4, I already knew it. Right? Yeah. Second is recognize the value in differences. This is hard. The value in differences. Really? Do I really like you when you disagree with me on every front? Kind of like what Pat has been doing to me, right? Do I really like you? Really? That's a little bit hard, a little bit anti-human nature. Companion discrimination. And if I were to twist your arm and say, do you discriminate people? You're gonna go, no, of course not, right? All of us would say no, but the fact that we have discrimination cases are floating around, what's causing that? Huh? Isn't it interesting? So I'm going to share with you some information later on to see why are we still dealing with this. And then promoting inclusiveness. This is probably the most proactive way of including or engaging diversity. Okay, so inclusion is ideal, but is it easy?
No.
I want streetcar. You say no, it creates noises, right? I want more bike lanes. You say no, it costs money and it inconveniences the cars on the road, right? I want our park to look really beautiful, manicured. You say no, it should look very natural. So we should have lots of weeds growing. Experience?
Uh-huh.
Do I kind of know your business a little bit? All right. So it's not easy. Now, most of the time, nobody is trying to be difficult or discriminating, right? Most of the time, it is because that's the way our brain is designed. Okay. Dr. Steve Robinson, he says, if we are not proactive, intentional, and deliberate about including differences, we will unintentionally be exclusive. Do you agree with this statement?
I do.
I do. Who is this guy anyway? Right? Dr. Steve Robin. Anyone heard about this guy? No? Okay. He's rather famous right now. He's a Vietnamese. Came to this country at age 7 back in the 70s. And are you old enough to know about the history, right? Vietnam fell. And so lots of people fled out, and he was lucky enough to have money to get on a boat. The boat did not capsize, and they were lucky enough to arrive on the continent, which in this case was LA, okay, in the United States. And so, what kind of childhood do you think he would have? From Vietnam, during Vietnam War era, anti-war sentiment in the society?
No trust in the government. I had a client that was from Vietnam and spent 14 years in when they were going to, what did they say it, recondition his mind. And that he did not trust the government at all. And people over here just couldn't understand. I mean, but he didn't because of what he and his children went through the war.
That's right. So when he came to this country as a little boy who doesn't know the language, doesn't know the culture, doesn't know the environment, doesn't like the food, and the people have anti-war sentiment. What kind of experience do you think he had growing up? Positive or negative? Very negative. He had horrible experiences, right? So when he grew up, he said, I want to understand human nature. I want to know how could any human being treat another human being like the way I was dealt with, right? I wasn't bitter at all. So he went into psychology, sociology, neuroscience, all kinds in his PhD studies. So this is what he concluded. And lots of people say, yeah, I can relate to it. He says we are very susceptible to being unintentional or unconsciously influenced by all those things. Do you have those things in your brain?
Sure.
We all do, right? We all do. You just know. I may not want to talk about it because it's not nice. But we all do. All right. So he talked about one phenomenon in our psychological nature. He says we have all this uh-oh gut reaction. One day he was flying between Seattle and Chicago. And usually when he get on the plane, this is what he would do. He would step outside of the cockpit and he would say, "Thank you," to the pilots, right? This day, he came up to the plane and he was going like, "Thank." And then he sat down. So he said, "Hang on, what just happened?" And he found himself in his own mind asking the question, "Are we going to arrive in Chicago safely today?" Guess what he saw inside the cockpit?
Bear.
A bear, no.
That's a good guess.
A woman,
A woman,
a black person.
young woman, African American young woman, very skinny and short, right? So right away, that kind of thought came to his mind. And he said, "Oh, I cannot believe this. I'm the person person who's studying this kind of thing. And I'm thinking like that, right? He said, if I am already conscious about this thing and already have that kind of human nature, how about all those people that think that they are all very good?
Right.
Okay, so this is our gut reaction. What's your reaction when you see this?
Oh, my. Yikes. Yikes.
Some people already say, all right. What's your reaction when you see this? Yay, let's have a party. Awesome, right? Okay. Just from your reaction, I can see there's already some reaction in your heart. All right. What comes to your mind when you see this? Be honest, it's okay. Don't worry about political correctness.
I'm assuming that the people that go around and give you tickets, parking tickets, that's what first come to my mind. That comes in and gives my car a ticket because I parked too long.
Overworked, dog tired, and too far from retirement, with the exception of Joyce. Right? Okay. What comes to your mind when you see accountants?
Logic.
Logic? That's a very positive, neutral statement. Anyone else?
Just stuffy and nice to sit at their desk in their office.
Kind of boring too, isn't it? How about IT professionals?
Social skills.
No social skills.
Exactly. They think absolutely out of the box.
And guess what? Just FYI, the biggest geek under the sun is also the richest man under the sun. No way, huh? Okay. What comes to your mind when you see?
Because they don't bother with people, that's why.
How about baby boomers?
Wonderful people. Wonderful people.
This gentleman here is sitting here going like, what's wrong with baby boomers? Immigrants, what comes to your mind?
Illegal.
Illegal? Refugees? Services? Anyone has the burden in their heart? Burden, the thought of burden. No? Okay. How about serving in a community like you do? Do you say, I was out of my mind to accept this challenge? Or do you say, I'm just so bored, I need to make some troubles for Mayor Becker? Right? I just have nobody to have fun with, so that's why I volunteer myself. All right. Anyway, all these kind of thoughts are our gut reaction, right? Quite often, we're not even aware we have those kind of thoughts. Huh? What I call paradigms, or in my English way, it's called paradigm.
Yeah.
All right. Dr. Stephen Robbins says we don't have to put the stereotypes in our head. You don't have to consciously do it. How does it get into our head? The environment does it for you, right? And so if you're not careful about examining my thoughts, what caused those thoughts, chances are you're going to live your life as, good old time, right? Okay. So there are more barriers to inclusion. One is unfamiliarity with other cultures. And another one is the language. The fact that I just don't understand you, right? And then quite often it's our impatience because I got no time. I got so many things to do, I got no time to hassle with you, all right? So talk about culture. Culture is a very fascinating thing in life. I have lived in 3 different continents, and every time when I encounter a new culture, I go, this is so cool. So cool, huh? How many of you have lived in outside of US? Yay, did you have the same feeling whenever you encounter new things too, right? Just point a couple key interesting points. Assertiveness. Here in America, we say the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Guess what we say in China? The nails that sticks out gets hammered down.
Whoa.
Huh? Isn't it totally different?
Totally.
Totally different. All right. Body language, that's a 3-hour training. If you're interested, come to my class. Communication styles. In China, where I grew up, kids are told you have 2 years and 1 month, right? Actually, you should not even use your mouth at all. Right? Here, how do we educate our kids? Speak up, right? So very different. Eye contact. When I was young, I was such a good girl, never made any boo-boo whatsoever. Huh? My mom is not here right now, so let me tell you the truth. Right? Quite often she will call me, Stephanie, call me, Yao Shuhui, come here. What did you just do? Da, 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 right? So when my mom is disciplining me, how should I behave? Where should I put my eyes at?
Down.
Down. Hey, how do you know? You don't know, okay. How many of you here have heard your wife, your mother, your grandma, your sister, whoever is disciplining their kids? What did you hear all the time?
Look at me.
Look at me when I'm talking to you, right? So now you have some diversity in your community. You want people to talk. And because you are the chair, so some people respect you when talking, they look down. How do you interpret their behavior?
Is that with an iPhone in their hand or not?
Without. Right? Usually we form a number of perceptions based on what we observe, right? And yet lots of things are culturally related. Personal space. This is an interesting thing. Who do I want to pick on? You.
Blake, you're up, dude. What's your bubble, man?
What's your problem? Yeah.
Well, you just walked into it. I mean, I was happy when you were out in the hallway.
Okay, personal space. Blake.
He has no bubble.
No, he's not a normal, typical American, so you disqualify. So what I was trying to do is, you stand here, you are really not a good example, but let me try anyway. Tell me at what time you start feeling uncomfortable, right? The wrong person.
Right about there.
Really?
Kind of.
Kind of, right? Guess what? In Oriental societies in Asia, the personal distance is much further, right? And so when I first came to this country when I was 29, never mind, I found this interesting dynamics. Say, for example, we're in a meeting, right, during a break, and we're just chit-chatting, right? And you will be walking towards me, right? We're talking, right? And then keep going, we continue to talk, right?
Yes, we're talking.
Yes. So by the time the break is over, we have traveled around the world. Right? Why? Because of cultural differences there. Huh? You totally are so abnormal. Go back.
That's a good thing.
Power, social status, those kind of things, a huge impact in how you interact with each other, right? Humor. In my country, if you're talking to Mayor Becker, you definitely do not want to crack a joke because he is kind of the leader in the city, right? Versus here, every meeting starts with a joke, right? And so lots of this culture, they are different. And you go, how do I learn about all these cultures when we have so many diverse people in our community, right? Is it possible for you to live in every single country on the earth? Probably not. So then what? We say it is a learned knowledge. However, you cannot learn just by reading a couple books. Basically, you kind of have to live there to know it, right? And so it's not possible. Therefore, what's the second best then? Second best is if we can be cognitively flexible, behaviorally adaptable, then we may have a chance. Okay? Our community needs agility. And that's what we come to, okay? So I understand that possibly AI may not understand this culture as well, especially if the language is not a barrier. So here is a human nature paradigm. Do you think that we fight to death for our own perspective? Have you ever heard that someone say, "Who are you to tell me I was wrong?" Right? Yeah. Have you heard that in the community meetings? You do know that the earth used to be flat, huh? Mm-hmm. It did not shrink into a sphere until when?
Columbus. Columbus.
Much earlier than that. 300 BC. Aristotle was thinking about it, right? And you do know that Earth used to be the center of universe until when? About 1500 AD, right? Galileo's time. And for holding that thought, he had to be put in prison for the longest time, isn't it, right? So we say we change the data to fit our world. We see the world as we are. We don't see the world as it is. And so when human interaction comes in a community, you have all these things going on in people's mind. Can you see how much fun we're gonna have, right? On top of that, our brain is a very, very efficient organ within our body. It wants to conserve energy. And so what does our brain do? It writes lots of script for us, huh? And then if the things are different around us, then we have to rewrite our script, and the brain doesn't like to do that. Do you agree that we live life mostly mindless? Because Stephanie, speak for yourself and me. Guess what? Have you ever ask yourself, how did I get home today? Which street did I drive by to get home today, right? You don't even have to think about it because it's automatic. We do autopilot all the time, and our brain writes lots of script for us because it's very efficient and it's pretty good. But sometimes when variable changes, it becomes, uh-oh, it's not valid anymore, huh? And so, Dr. Robbins said, UI or U1? UI equals M1 plus M2. I'm good in math, so I have to do it this way, right?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah, me too.
UI is unintentional intolerance. I don't believe anybody will claim I am intolerant. No, nobody will say that because you are not that kind of person. However, sometimes intolerance shows up in our community, right? But constant, two things. One is multiple redundant messages, and the other one is mindlessness. Okay? So if I were to tell you, German goods have quality. German goods have quality. German goods have quality. This clicker was made in Germany. It is what?
Quality.
Quality. If I were to tell you Chinese are smart, Chinese are smart. Chinese are smart. Stephanie is Chinese. Stephanie is
Smart.
uh-huh. Do you understand why McDonald's spends millions of dollars every year, every day, trying to bombard you with the messages when you are hungry, you should go to McDonald's, right? Because of this, right? Okay. Mindlessness. You say, Stephanie, I really am not like what you're describing. Okay, let's test to see if your brain is normal or not. Can you bring your two hands up for me? Okay? I ask you, count this word, top. Say top 10 times, and as you are saying it, just kind of count so you know you already say it 10 times, right? Say it out loud and say it kind of quickly. And at the end, I'm going to ask you a question. Please answer that question. Those who stay in silent, you're going to stay here 2 more hours. Is that a good enough thread? Okay. Ready? Go. Top.
Top, 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 top,
What do you do when you see the green light?
Stop.
Go. To go.
One more time. For those who did not say anything, give you a chance to repent. Say something when I ask the question, all right? This time say joke 15 times louder and faster, and then answer my question at the end, okay? Sounds good? Ready? Go.
Joke, 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 joke.
What do you call the clear part of an egg?
Yo. Yo.
Yo.
White.
Oh.
Ah, very good. Very good. Very good.
How of you don't know how to
The
follow
whites.
instructions?
The whites.
Answer my question, right? Okay. So far, I declare your brain is very normal. When you see the green light, you stop. When you see the clear part of the egg, you say, oh, that's a yolk. Did you get it? Are your brain normal? Yeah. That's called mindlessness, isn't it? Okay. So, what do we do when we come to diversity? trying to engage diversity. We say be more mindful and less mindless. Challenge your own paradigms, right? Be more curious and less certain. Please don't tell anybody, I know it. I know everything. I know what you're going to say even before you open your mouth. Just because you are from Vietnam, I know exactly what you're going to think, right? I know what you're going to say because you're a refugee. No, 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 don't say that. We don't know. We really don't know, huh? Okay. I want you to give me a fair assessment. In your opinion, where do you think your council is at in terms of dealing with differences? And there are a number of levels from 0 to 5. 0 means, what are you talking about? It's in my blind spot. I don't even know. Right? That's 0. 1 is rejecting. When I see differences, I just want them to tell them that, hey, go away. If I need an opinion, I'll give you one. Right? Zip. Right? That's 1. 2 is tolerating. Okay, try to be politically correct. Therefore, okay now. If you will just sit there, don't say a word, okay? 3 is accepting. Fine, we are all citizens within the community. Let's try to accept each other. 4 is valuing. You actually seek out. You go, hey, Sean, what do you think about this one? Hey, what do you think about this one? You actually seek out, right? 5 is, hey, no problem. We all should always hugging everybody. Be careful, you may fall into harassment lawsuit.
How many other community councils are there, so.
All right, so I want you to just use one hand to tell me, and it's a very scientific poll, that's all, just to tell me where do you think your particular council is at, as indicated by number of fingers. You can give me 1 if that's truly your assessment, but please don't use that 1 finger.
Oh.
I'd say 1. We're very contentious. No. Probably 1. Like a 3.
All right. All right. So, in other words, there are spots that we still have a lot of work to do, right? So, question. If this is kind of demographics we have, what can we do to engage more diversity? Right? Because of interest of time, I'm just going to give you some suggestions. Whether you like it or not, you can just kind of consider it. 1 is recognize that your role is to create an environment very safe for people to voice their opinion, right? And not being feeling like, ooh, I've been put down because of what I said. The other one is make it a goal, because truly diversity has a lot of benefit. Reach out. I don't know what kind of things you will do to reach out, but definitely there are lots of vehicles and means you can reach out. And then make sure that they are reaching the diverse member that don't represent themselves normally. Okay, that's the population we want to target. And then have a variety of topics that will appeal to different people at different times, so that we have a more engaging environment. Okay, so there are lots of resources provided for you. Yolanda, sitting right next there, she is our director in the diversity office, and she has tons of good information. You log on to the website, you will be impressed. Also on Google, there are lots of different things where you go, wow, we are not the only city who's working on this. There are lots of cities who's been working on, and therefore we can learn from them. Okay, so tons of resources are available for you, and I think this presentation probably sparked more questions in your heart than answer any of your questions. So it definitely deserves further exploration in the future. And so this time I just want to share with you, hey, watch out. Sometimes our paradigm may not be valid. And sometimes it could be the cause for some conflicts in our community. So let's see how we can include or engage more diversity in our community. Sounds good?
Yes.
Yes. Are you awake still?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I can say all of them, you know.
Stephanie, thank you. Now you know why when people go, oh, do I have to go through diversity training in Salt Lake City? And then they get Stephanie. Their ideas change quickly. Thank you, Stephanie. That was great. Listen, I really apologize because normally we like to provide a bunch of time for people to raise some comments. I know all of you, or most of you at least, have schedules of places you need to be, things you need to do, so I don't want to hold you. just ask if there's someone who has something that is so pressing that we need to be aware of it or hear of it, to just let us know. You could do it now. Otherwise, maybe what I will just suggest is that you stay in touch with our office, call us, let us know if there's some things, and we'll be meeting again. Do you know when, Karen? February. So we'll have another meeting in February. We'll let you know the date and time for that. And but let me ask, is there someone who needs something that they need to say, you're planning on saying you need to say for Little Grove? Please.
I just have a quick comment. Open City Hall is great. If you don't want to write on it or go with it, just read the comments or say that you like it. I mean, I think Open City Hall is great.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I mean, I look at it regularly, and I'll just concur with it. How's that? Thank you. Karen.
Rebecca, just really quickly, I know Stephanie was asking all of you if you know what the demographics of your own particular district are. The city partnered with the University of Utah with Dr. Pam Perlich in our 2010 census atlas that we have. And it gets down to different communities. So it gets down to the city council districts and then probes into some deeper communities as well. So your liaisons will have that data booklet if you'd like to access that. I think it's also online on our city website. It's really
Yeah, thank you for bringing that. I know I use it regularly as a reference. If you haven't seen that, Pam Perlich, P-E-H-R-L-A-C-H is her last name, at the University of Utah. She's head of the, is it still Bureau of Economic and Business Research? And a great resource information on the makeup in so many different ways of our community, and broken down in a lot of detail. And she spent a lot of time on that. It's actually really valuable information. So thank you for mentioning that. Anything else for the good of the order? Thank you, Nate.
Sure. So one of the big things that the East Central, and I know a number of other community councils have a kind of a concern about, is the plume. That's kind of the PCE plume, which is a chemical. I think it stands for perchloroethylene, or sometimes known as tetrachloroethylene, used for dry cleaning purposes. There's been, some identification of that being present since the 90s, and I mean, as up to 320 micrograms per liter, which the national standard is 5 micrograms per liter. We've had a number of wells that had to be shut down, and we're on the national priorities list with the EPA to make sure that that gets cleaned up, and we've received a super fund. But there's also a lot of concerns, overall, just regarding the schools that are nearby in this area. I mean, probably an influx of 10 to 12,000 students a day in our area in the Douglas neighborhood and East Central. The residents, and there's a lot of exposure risks that are taking place. Anything from short-term exposures of irritation of the respiratory system to long-term exposures, affecting people's kidneys and development and reproductive systems. So it's a big concern, and the overall concern of that, besides just the exposure piece, is what's going to be taking place to clean that up. I think the preliminary methods and strategic plan that's been put in place is seen as being somewhat unacceptable. There's not any kind of outreach that's being done that's specifically targeting folks in this area. In regards to a process to clean that up, I've heard of drilling pipes down to kind of let this chemical evaporate into the air.
So Nate, just in the interest of time, actually, we have spent an enormous amount of time, and I know some folks even around this table have been involved in it. Your information is right. There's been an EPA designation. We have both just flyered the neighborhood, had multiple workshops. There's ongoing information available. Okay. Let us follow up with you. And if you aren't familiar with some of it and you want to get us input, I know there are ongoing opportunities both for input, but also the information. We have insisted, and EPA has been great about this, that it is completely transparent. So we'll follow up with you and get you that information and invite in an ongoing way input. It's been a big concern. It's been going on for several years, as you know, I'm sure. And I know we are working with EPA, Valley Health, or County Health now, and others. There's a major cleanup going on. And I can tell you, public health is numero uno, and I think we're all recognizing it as the reason the wells were shut down. So
Who should we contact in your office?
Karen, I don't know if you or one of the liaisons can, why don't you contact Karen, and we'll, I know we've got every piece of information that's out there we have available, so, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let me just close by wishing all of you a happy holiday season. We'll hope that this relatively sunny weather or snowy weather, either of those are better than the alternative, continues. And we'll look forward to seeing you in February. And thank you again for all of your service to the city and to each of the neighborhoods and communities. So thank you.